So with the second match in 3 days for FC Barcelona, it felt like coming off Atletico Madrid, we wanted to move on to the next one, move on to the next result, get 3 points. Atletico Madrid tomorrow and Real Madrid on Thursday, we're supposed to have a bit of pressure on them. But instead, here we are again, talking about some disappointments. I want to talk positive about the first half. There were things that Barcelona did right, as you know. And then, of course, I want to explain how things kind of fell apart in that second half and left us with this disappointing 3-3 result that has basically knocked Barcelona out of title contention. Starting with the lineups, the wrinkle here was the positioning of Ousmane Dembélé and how De Jong would support him. Araujo also comes in to start for Mingueza, and Dembélé continues to start on the other side. Pedri could have opened this match up with a goal. There was an attempt in the first minute down the right side. It basically showed you Barcelona's game plan. Not only was it attack, but use the one-on-one ability of Ousmane Dembélé and force that 4-4-2, as in 4 in the back line. And I wasn't sure if Paco Lopez was going to go with 5, but he chose to go with 4, and that meant that somebody else always had to try to help over the top of Ousmane Dembélé, and that left spaces open for Messi, for Griezmann, and for diagonal balls over to Alba. In particular, it was Pedri who kept getting himself free. So with Levante defending in that 4-4-2, Barcelona, the first 15 minutes of this match, all about the Blaugrana. There were balls out wide, balls over the top. De Jong gets a ball over the top, cuts it back to Pedri, but that one was blocked by Héctor Fernandez. So second attempt for Pedri within the first 15 minutes. And then Levante finally get their chances around 8 minutes in. They do find this match, and it settled down after that. 21st minute, Dembélé, forced to defend Tonio, chests it down towards his own goal and slips. And this could have been a mistake to put Barcelona in the can 1-0 at that point. That is the high risk, high reward for Ousmane Dembélé in that kind of position. And I thought overall, he did a pretty good job defending today. It was a mistake, but one that I think he put behind him at that point. Because soon after, Barcelona get the first goal of the game, and Alba crossed to Messi on the volley. And it wasn't even the finish, because the finish, I think, maybe a little bit of luck for the Argentine. He gets just enough on it, setting himself up for the volley. But it was actually the movement prior to making contact with the ball that most impressed me about Messi. We don't see this one too often. It's usually him either finding the ball in stride or creating it himself. But the way that off this cross, he peeled off the back of the midfielder and set himself up for the shot, getting just enough. Again, most other players aren't even going to get a touch on that ball. But the fact that he was able to get just enough of a volley on it and put himself in that position to score, I mean, his defender was, by that point, 3-4 yards away. So it was the setup to that was most impressive to me about Messi. For that, his 29th league goal of the season. Did we ever doubt him? Absolutely not. 2-0, the pass from Messi that led Dembélé down the right side. And in this instance, a lot of credit to Messi too. It was a numerical overload on that right side. And since Messi was on the ball, Tonio had to make a decision between Dembélé and Messi. So Tonio sticks with Messi, forcing Duarte to pick up Dembélé out wide. And that is a foot race that Duarte was never going to win. So Dembélé, with that kind of space on the right side, finds Pedri. And on his third chance, this time he is wide open for the finish. And Pedri gets his goal. That one felt a bit inevitable that Pedri on his third attempt was finally going to get one in. Araujo in that first half looked like he picked up and shook off a knock. And it winds up being really important to this game. And honestly, unfortunately, the turning point in the match. Yes, in that first half, Levante had a few chances, but they were only really coming through Morales, the captain, and Bardi, the Macedonian playmaker. And those are Levante's 2 danger men, so they were expected to create something. Marti wasn't really doing much of anything, and Araujo was doing a good job keeping him in check. But all things changed at halftime. It's not the fault of one player. We'll break this all down, but yes, of course, the one big difference is Sergio Roberto comes on for Araujo at halftime. And Barcelona just weren't pressing. It wasn't just Roberto. Barcelona as a team, they weren't pressing with the same intensity. They seemed to just go in second gear. And that can't happen if you're going to win the Liga trophy at this point. So the 2-1 comes down the right side for Levante, and this one goes on Roberto. Winning the header from the cross from Morales, Melero beating Roberto to the ball, and yeah, I have to be honest, in this instance, I don't think Araujo gets beat on that header. And there we are with 1 goal back. 59th minute, this was an interesting sequence. It would have been lighter and more fun to talk about if Barcelona had gotten a result here, but now it's just a weird footnote that Héctor Fernandez tried a bicycle kick back towards his own net to keep the ball away from Dembélé. Then the other way, Morales finds some space in midfield. Barcelona able to clear their lines momentarily because then the second goal comes. Barcelona surviving the first foray, but unfortunately, Messi misplays it back to Busquets and Morales jumps on top of it. And after a 1-2 with Marti, I think it was one of the worst goals conceded of the year, but on second replay, Morales had a lot of work to do. It was a nice 1-2 with Marti, and I think more credit is deserved to Morales than I originally thought. Roberto and Piqué, yes, they were out of position, but they were also out of position because Messi just can't give the ball away in that instance. So that makes it 2-2. Now Barcelona had to respond once more, and they do just that. The third goal of the game for Barca comes Messi to Griezmann, out to Dembele, and Dembele finishes with a bit of time and pace and gets some strength on that shot to beat the keeper. There was a question about Griezmann making contact with Miramon, but that's what I think it was, contact, not a foul. So there we're at 3-2. I had written in my notes at that point that I wanted to praise Dembele. Not only did he have the goal, not only did he have the assist to Pedri, but at that point, 70 minutes in, he also had 7 ball retrievals, and I was really happy with the performance that Dembele put in. But that's where things kind of get negative. 74th minute, Mingueza on for Pedri, pushing Roberto into the midfield. In theory, where he goes over to the left interior spot, De Jong continues on the right interior spot. In the 77th minute, speaking of De Jong, who was really good in that first half, but seemed to slow down a bit in the second half, gets his yellow, which means he's suspended for Celta de Vigo. It's a tough yellow card, but there hadn't been a lot of yellows issued in this game. He gets the ball but falls through the man. I think it's the arm position is why he was given the yellow card. 81st minute, Dest and Braithwaite on for Griezmann and Dembele. Their legs were getting tired. Substitutes have to come in. So you can question the substitutes, the 5 that were in this game, because obviously Riqui Puig comes on the 85th minute. The third goal for Levante was scored in between that. But going back to the subs, you can question those all you want. But there clearly was an idea as to what the different substitutes would do. And Roberto was the only one that I could consider a serious net loss here. And again, he only gets substituted in that instance because Araujo goes off injured. The 3-3, Sergio Leon scores. Dest trips on a move from Tonio. And Sergio Leon getting to the near post around Piqué and finishing with the outside of his boot. At that point, 3 of the 4 shots by Levante that were on target found the back of the net. And that's what's unacceptable. You could say that Ter Stegen has to cover his near post better. Piqué cannot get beat to the spot. So now that's twice did Barcelona players get beat to the spot, and Dest obviously slipping. It's unfortunate, but his defensive positioning after the slip even, he wasn't able to get where he needed to be, and that cross from Tonio was able to be whipped outside in, putting it on a platter for Lyon. So mistakes everywhere along that back line for Barcelona. As I said, for Riqui Puig, inserted in the 85th minute. The only other note to wrap up this game, it was frustrating to watch at the end. It felt like Barcelona weren't going to get that 4th goal, which is a sad thing to say. Lenglet picking up a yellow and then punching the ball away out of frustration. At that point, when it was 3-3, at 2-2 there was still belief, but at 3-3, I think the players and we all Kool-Aids knew that this one was done and dusted, and that means the Liga trophy was out of Barcelona's grasp. And some of the big questions that we're going to talk about on the podcast this week, I think maybe not befitting a match review. Obviously, Koeman's job, whether or not he's going to continue on, and whether or not he deserves it. That's a yes or no. I think that one's still very much up in the air, depending on which match you had just watched. After this one, the answer is no. After others, the answer has been a yes. Continuing the struggles of Roberto, which, yeah, it's frustrating. There's no defense. There's a lot of things that went wrong in that second half as far as a team perspective, but individually, since he's come back from injury, just has not looked right. And if that means the board has to ask big questions about Roberto's contract, about where he is and his future at the club, I mean, it's a 4th captain, but those are the questions you're going to have to ask. I also want to say, positive-wise, Busquets, after a facial injury, I was a little worried that he was going to run out of gas, and I don't think he did. I thought Busquets was good throughout this entire match. That said, Busquets, Pedri, and De Jong have played too much this season. That is kind of what I learned from the second half. Against Granada, it was a second half. Against Getafe, it was a second half, where Barcelona just didn't have enough legs. And it's, again, no disservice of the actual skill and abilities of De Jong, Busquets, and Pedri. Those are your starters. That is the starting 3 for Barcelona in the midfield. However, Riqui Puig needed to have been rotated in. It's not just about Puig. Other players, whether it was Pjanic or ES Muiba starting even more than he did, or of course Riqui Puig, or calling up even more B midfielders, whether it was Nico Gonzalez to come in for Busquets, if that's the best like-for-like defensive midfielder that you can find at the club. There just wasn't enough rotation in this squad this season. And I think it's, again, a positive and a negative. Koeman showed us that there are 16 to 17 players that he could have trusted this year, and it's a credit to him for finding 16 to 17 players and getting some good play out of them. But the negative is, because he shortened his bench in the way he did, everything was a final, he just didn't have enough players that he trusted, and these second halves in the last 2 or 3 weeks is why Barcelona lost the title, and that winds up falling on the manager. So it's a frustrating thing that Koeman was the very reason why Barcelona are in the Liga race. But again, the manager is also the reason why Barcelona wind up falling up short. And that's why it's so frustrating, because you believe the manager had created a squad in what was supposed to be a transition year when Barcelona could have won the title. So I understand the frustration. There are positives, there are negatives, and we're going to talk a lot more about it on the podcast this week. So until next time, Forza Barca.